Okay, everybody's going to be very happy now because this next video is going to focus on 6-mark questions, everybody's favourite. Now, 6 marks is a lot of marks. It could cost you a grade boundary if you don't write anything for one of these. And I know students often look at them and think, I just have no idea what they're asking me to write here. So I want to convince you that you can still get 4 out of 6 marks, even if you never work out what it was they were getting at. And the way you do that is you simply write down any relevant physics that you know relating to the stuff they have mentioned in the question. So we're going to work through one together. This is, I think, the most horrible 6-mark question I've ever seen. So have a quick read of this. Okay, we're just going to write down in sort of a brief plan anything we know that's relevant to the physics in here. All right, so number 1, the sun loses mass and to maintain its luminosity. Okay, well, luminosity, I know what that is. That's the total power radiated by the star, so I'm going to say that. I also know a formula for luminosity, so I'm going to write that as well. And then what's this business about losing mass? Well, we know why that is. The sun is doing a nuclear reaction that is exothermic. It's giving out energy. And that means that mass must be disappearing. And the amount that disappears is called the mass defect. And the energy that it turns into is given by this formula. And it's this energy that's being radiated by the star. Okay, so look, we actually knew a lot of stuff that was relevant to number 1 there. Moving on to number 2 now, you're starting to think, well, how does this all relate together? But because here we're going into ideal gas. So we've got hydrogen nuclei, that is protons, behaving like an ideal gas with this temperature, and it's talking about the kinetic energy that you need necessary for fusion. Okay, ideal gas first of all, ideal gas and temperature. We know that the kinetic energy of particles in a gas, they don't all have the same kinetic energy. There's going to be a distribution, and it's the average kinetic energy of those particles that is related to the temperature. So I can explain this graph and I can add that formula in. Then it says that kinetic energy necessary for fusion. Well, I also know that you need very high kinetic energies for fusion because you need to overcome the electrostatic repulsion. And that's because the strong force is very short range, so they need to get very close together for fusion to happen. So I know all of that related to these ideas in number 2. Okay, if you write a decent amount of this down, you've got 4 marks. So even if you look at number 3 and you think, don't know, no idea, you can still get 4 marks from writing most of that down. Okay, but what is number 3 about? Well, it's saying that the sun's temperature is only that. It's not as high as it wanted before. And so the chance of protons fusing is very small. So we've got chance is very small. And then why does it have such a long lifetime? Okay. The temperature is only that. So I had that graph before. So now I draw it again. So this was the higher temperature that it wanted for fusion, was that average related to that average kinetic energy. And here is the lower temperature. Here's the curve for the lower temperature. Because remember, the temperature is related to this lower average kinetic energy. Okay, and now this might start to look a bit familiar. Here was the temperature we needed for fusion. And look, at this lower temperature, we do still have, let me grab the highlighter, we do still have these particles here. that have high enough energies to fuse. So some fusion is going to happen, but not very many, and that's why the chance of fusion is low, and that's why the sun lasts so long. So how do you put this into a sentence? You say that the temperature of the sun is only 10 to the 7. That means that the average kinetic energy is lower, but there are still some particles that have a high enough energy, but not very many of them. That's what you say there. Okay, so this is the strategy. Even if you're not sure what to say, just write down everything you can think of that's relevant to the concepts, the topics that are in the question.